Wanted to see a change from the traditional politician, but then he went and opened his mouth. You know? If you don't think Donald Trump is a threat, you don't think this is the most important election. I do. I just don't. I've known him for 25 years. I don't trust him.
The 2016 presidential election had barely ended when the shockwaves started. Shockwaves that didn't come from political insiders or Washington operatives, but from a billionaire with a mouth just as bold as Donald Trump's. Mark Cuban, entrepreneur, NBA owner, and TV personality, had long voiced his skepticism of Trump.
But last night on Twitter, you officially joined the Never Trump Club. What changed for you?
But what happened days after Trump was declared president-elect would ignite a war of words that stunned even the most seasoned political observers. It wasn't a press release. It wasn't a tweet storm. It was a full-blown detonation. Cuban, never one to mince words, took the stage at a tech summit and pulled no punches. "This isn't about politics anymore," he said, eyes laser-focused. "This is about competence, about leadership, about who we just handed the nuclear codes to." The audience froze. Then the floodgates opened. Within hours, Cuban followed up with an op-ed in the New York Times, accusing Trump of staggering incompetence, zero curiosity, and most damningly, an obsession with being liked more than being right.
If you don't think Donald Trump is a threat, you don't think this is the most important election. I do. I just don't. I've known him for 25 years. I don't trust him.
Trump, he saw it. He always sees it. And he exploded. What Cuban did next will leave your jaw on the floor. And what Trump shouted back might just break the internet. But here's the kicker. This feud isn't just about two billionaires barking at each other. It's about who shapes the future of America, tech-savvy innovators or power-hungry populists. Stick around, because what happens next changes everything. The Trump-Cuban beef wasn't new. It had been simmering for months, quietly at first, through passive-aggressive jabs in interviews and indirect social media commentary. But this time was different. This time, Cuban wasn't throwing jabs, he was launching missiles. Appearing on CNBC, Cuban revealed that he'd been approached by multiple Silicon Valley executives to help form a billionaire tech resistance, a coalition prepared to challenge every policy Trump proposed that threatened innovation, privacy, and global cooperation.
I want to look where other people aren't, because that's where you find smart people. And then once you find those smart people, they got to be qualified.
He called it a firewall against ignorance. Trump, watching cable news religiously, caught wind of it immediately. Within minutes, he unleashed his signature fury on Twitter. "Mark Cuban is a failed wannabe who begged me for a position. Sad." Cuban didn't blink. He tweeted back, "You're the president-elect. Act like one. I've built companies. You've built lawsuits." This was no longer a battle of words. It was a full-blown ideological war.
It's just Trump sucks. That's the underlying, thought of everything the Democrats do. Trump sucks.
Then Cuban took it even further. In an unprecedented move, he announced that he would fund a shadow task force of economists, legal scholars, and policy analysts to publicly audit every major Trump proposal. "If you won't listen to experts," Cuban said, "we'll make the experts louder." CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, they all covered it. Even Fox News couldn't ignore it. Cuban was on every screen, laying out his plan to crowdsource policy reviews and publish independent alternatives to Trump's agenda. Trump's reaction? Furious. He called it treasonous, un-American, and pathetic.
Would I hire him to run a company for me? No. But he's our president. I think, as much as I've picked on him.
Sources inside Trump Tower leaked that the president-elect had demanded Cuban be investigated for economic sabotage. That didn't happen, of course. But something else did. Suddenly, tech CEOs began aligning themselves with Cuban. Elon Musk retweeted the project. Sheryl Sandberg donated. Tim Cook issued a rare public statement saying he welcomed oversight that strengthens democracy. The movement Cuban started was no longer theoretical. It was gaining steam, fast. Behind the scenes, Trump's team was scrambling. Bannon, Kushner, Conway, they all urged him to stop engaging. It only elevates him, they warned. But Trump couldn't resist. Cuban had gotten under his skin in a way few ever had.
Wanted to see a change from the traditional politician, but then he went and opened his mouth.
Then came the final blow. At a nationally televised panel discussion hosted by MIT, Cuban dropped what many called the Silicon Sledgehammer. He shared internal memos, leaked from Trump's transition team, that revealed disorganized staffing decisions, shocking gaps in policy knowledge, and a total lack of cybersecurity protocol. Cuban didn't say how he got the documents, but he did say this: "We are in the hands of someone who doesn't read. That's not an insult. It's a national security concern." The audience gasped. Trump, watching live according to White House insiders, was apoplectic. He allegedly threw his phone across the room. The hashtag #Cuban leaks trended for 3 days. Cuban wasn't done, not even close. He organized a virtual summit, the first of its kind, called the Innovation Resistance. Attended by CEOs, professors, students, and former Obama officials, the summit focused on how to push back against Trump's technology and science policies. Topics included net neutrality, climate data preservation, digital privacy, and immigration reform. The final speaker? Cuban himself. He ended the summit with a line that echoed around the world. "We can't afford to wait for the system to correct itself. The system elected this. Now it's on us to challenge, correct, and rebuild." Even Trump loyalists admitted it was a devastating mic drop. Trump couldn't let it go. In a closed-door meeting, he reportedly floated the idea of pulling NBA credentials from the Dallas Mavericks, the team Cuban owned, as petty payback. When told he had no legal basis to do so, he grumbled, "We'll find something." But that pettiness only made Cuban stronger. Public support for him surged. His Instagram comments were flooded with messages calling him a true patriot.
Now, stuff I'd torch him over, right? What he's doing socially, immigration, the EPA.
Protesters at anti-Trump rallies carried signs that read, "What would Mark Cuban do?" Cuban wasn't running for office. He wasn't trying to be a politician. But in that moment, he became something far more dangerous to Trump. A symbol. Late-night comedians had a field day. Stephen Colbert joked, "The last time someone triggered Trump this hard, it was Obama at the correspondents' dinner." Seth Meyers quipped, "Trump's nightmare isn't impeachment. It's Mark Cuban with a Wi-Fi signal." Meanwhile, Cuban doubled down. He started a podcast called The Future Isn't Orange, a reference to Trump's signature tan. Within a week, it was #1 on Apple Podcasts. The first episode, a 45-minute breakdown of why Trump's proposed tax plan would actually hurt small business owners. Trump tried to discredit it, tweeting, "Nobody listens to Cuban's fake podcast." Total joke. Cuban screenshot the tweet, posted it with the caption, "We hit a nerve," which means we hit the truth. But perhaps the most shocking development came when rumors leaked that Cuban was being quietly approached by moderates in both political parties, urging him to consider a future presidential run. He dismissed it at first. "I'm not a politician," he told Bloomberg. But then he added, almost as an afterthought, "But I wasn't a TV star either, until I was." The internet lit up. Could Cuban be setting the stage for 2020? The White House reportedly took the possibility very seriously. In the months that followed, Cuban and Trump continued to trade barbs. Cuban became the de facto voice of what many called smart resistance, a term coined by The Atlantic to describe those using facts, not rage, to fight the administration.
Right? I don't think he's moral. I don't think he's ethical. I've seen him rip people off. I don't believe pretty much anything he says.
But behind the scenes, Cuban was working on something even bigger, a tech-driven civic platform designed to educate voters, connect them with resources, and crowdsource legislation ideas. Cuban called it Democracy 2.0. And when he unveiled the beta version on 60 Minutes, even Trump's critics were impressed. "This isn't about me versus Donald," Cuban said in that interview. "It's about us versus apathy, because apathy got us here."
His implementation and execution of stuff is severely lacking, and I don't think they're thought through.
When Trump was finally inaugurated, Cuban didn't attend. He released a simple video instead. Just him in front of an American flag. "Mr. President, I wish you success, because if you fail, we all do. But if you think that means you won't be held accountable, think again." The video went viral. Within hours, it had 12 million views and counting. Trump tweeted, "Nobody cares about Cuban's opinion. He's irrelevant." And yet, he couldn't stop replying. And that, more than anything, told the real story. Because Trump only punches up, he only swings when threatened. And Cuban, he wasn't just a thorn in Trump's side. He was the one voice Trump couldn't silence.
That's not the way to win. It's just not, because it's not about Trump. It's about the people of the United States of America and what's good for them.
The one critic he couldn't shake, the one rival who didn't need power to wield it. And in the end, that made him more dangerous than any politician in Washington. Because Cuban didn't need a seat at the table. He was the table. And for once, Trump couldn't flip it. Want more dramatic billionaire face-offs, insider leaks, and presidential meltdowns? You have to stick around. Because this wasn't just Cuban versus Trump. It was the opening round of a battle that would redefine modern American resistance. And the war is just getting started.